In May of 1978, the UK comic scene was hit by a massive cosmic shockwave. If you walked into your local newsagent with 12 pence, which was a lot of pocket money back then, you could pick up a brand new weekly comic that promised the absolute future. It wasn't hosted by an alien named Tharg, and it didn't look like the cheap newsprint of 2000 AD. This was Starlord. It had stickered glossy paper, massive splashes of full color, and an attitude that was way more mature and gritty. But here's the twist. Despite outselling its rivals, Starlord vanished after just 22 issues. Today we're looking at the tragic, glorious history of the British comic that burned incredibly bright and died way too young and accidentally saved 2000 AD from extinction. So let's step back for a moment to 1977. Star Wars had just conquered the global box office, and Sci-Fi mania was at an absolute fever pitch. IPC Magazines already had a hit on their hands with 2000 AD, but they wanted more. Originally, writer Kevin Gosnell envisioned Starlord as a premium, fortnightly big sister to 2000 AD. It was meant to have longer stories, better production values, and target a slightly older teenage audience. But at the last second, management got cold feet about a fortnightly schedule and ordered it to go weekly. To compete with 2000 AD's famous alien editor Tharg, Starlord introduced its own fictional editor, an intergalactic hero, also named Starlord, who constantly warned British school kids about imminent alien invasions on the letters page, as you do. Just to clear up the obvious lingering question from those of you not young enough to have lived through it or had brothers who annoyed you incessantly about it, nothing to do with the US character, which was a character that had been around since the mid-70s, but no connection between them. It was just a common name. For a comic that only lasted 22 issues, its hit rate was absolutely legendary. Starlord didn't really have a bad strip. Let's look at some of the heavy hitters. Strontium Dog, created by John Wagner and Carlos Ezquerra, this was a gritty sci-fi western about mutant bounty hunters in the 22nd century. It introduced the world to Johnny Alpha, his alpha goggles, and his time bombs. It was an instant masterpiece. Robusters, written by the godfather of British comics, Pat Mills. It followed an eccentric billionaire's disaster rescue squad, populated entirely by hand-me-down robots. This strip gave us the hilarious, foul-mouthed sewer droid Road Jaws and the stiff ex-war droid Hammerstein. Now, for those of you familiar with some of these names, possibly from the Stallone Judge Dredd movie, or from vague memories of strips being resurfaced over the last few years, it was indeed the same Hammerstein and Road Jaws who went on to be in various iterations of ABC Warriors, the prequel/sequel to the whole Roadbusters series that started right here. The hidden gems in Starlord were the lesser known but brilliant cult strips Mind Wars and Planet of the Damned. Planet of the Damned, a horrific survival story about a jetliner sucked through the Bermuda Triangle onto a lethal alien world. There was also Time Quake, featuring a cynical time-traveling protagonist, and Mind Wars, a sprawling space opera about twins with reality-warping psychic powers that gave Star Wars a run for its money. So if it was this good, what went wrong? Why did it end on October 7th, 1978? Well, it comes down to a cold hard publishing economic situation. Because Starlord used high quality paper and heavy color printing, its production costs were sky high. Even though it was actually outselling 2000 AD during the summer of 1978, the profit margins were dangerously thin, and IPC decided that they couldn't sustain both titles. But instead of just letting Starlord die, they orchestrated a classic British comic merger tactic. They folded Starlord into 2000 AD. Now, what this actually meant was participating in a long-running tradition of British comics of the time, where anytime this situation came up, where two titles were competing for the same readership mostly, they would merge them into one, and then because there was a finite amount of space in the emerging, combination comic, they would decide which strips would be saved and which ones would be shelved for the moment. Honestly, a lot of people think that this merger injected pure adrenaline into 2000 AD. 2000 AD inherited Strontium Dog and Roadbusters, two franchises that became core pillars of the comic for decades. Roadbusters eventually evolved, like I mentioned, directly into the legendary ABC Warriors strip. Without the DNA of Starlord, 2000 AD might not have survived the early 1980s. Today, these 22 issues, along with the rare summer special and a few annuals, are a holy grail for vintage UK comics collectors. They represent a brief window in 1978 when British sci-fi was experimental, ultra-violent, beautifully illustrated, and completely unhinged. Did you read Starlord back in the day, or ever get hold of an actual issue yourself? Did you manage to keep your Star Trooper cover badge intact? Drop a comment below and let's talk about some classic British sci-fi. Don't forget to smash that like button, please, to hit the subscribe for more deep dives into comics history. And as the Starlord himself used to say, watch the stars. It gives me great pleasure to announce and include in the link. This will include new scans of the first 12 issues of the comic with lots of, top quality color pages in there. The scans painstakingly done. It's going to look pristine and presented in the same amazing fashion that recent collections over the last few years, such as the Action Before the Ban Volume 1 and the Scream 40 and then the Scream follow-up edition. So I'm super excited about that one. And from an historical point of view and a cultural point of view, delighted that this will be preserved. But thank you guys for listening. As always, please drop a like, subscribe to keep up with the updates that we have coming up on a whole array of British comics from the 1970s about Battle Weekly, Action Comics, 2000 AD itself, Crisis, Deadline, Toxic, Marvel UK, Warrior, and Judge Dredd, the magazine, to mention most of them. So hopefully you'll be with me for that. But thanks again for your time, and please drop a comment and feedback. Bye-bye.